in 2020, we started the firm in 2017. We had built it. We had grown it, hired some attorneys. And in 2020, Matt Schiller and Charlie Wilks joined the firm as equity and named partners. Matt Schiller was the vice chair of real estate at Greenbaum Rowe, which is a great New Jersey firm. Charlie Wilks was a real estate finance partner at that firm. And, they came on with us, and the firm went from Murphy Partners to Murphy Schiller and Wilks, MSW. And, since just has taken off, right? Because, again, I think the boutique model and I think the boutique philosophy is, in my opinion, kind of the future of law. I think you'll have eventually, major national and international law firms, and then, a boutique, whether it's driven by location or driven by a certain practice area.
Hey, everybody, you're not going to want to miss this episode with Chris Murphy, partner and co-founder of Murphy Schiller Wilks LLP, one of the preeminent land use and real estate law firms in the state of New Jersey. We're going to talk about how I met Chris almost 15 years ago when he was working in Trenton and how he decided to really focus and niche down into tax credits and incentives and how that has really helped with the explosive growth of the firm. We're going to talk about Chris's early days as a professional hockey player and a professional boxer and how that shaped his the way that he looks at life and the way that he shows up in the world. Chris is a really amazing person, someone that I think super highly of, and the firm has just grown just 25% year over year. Really impressive guy, a good friend of mine. So please join us. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. Today, I have my longtime friend, Mr. Chris Murphy, partner and co-founder of Murphy Schiller Wilks out of Newark, New Jersey. I like to call him the mayor of Newark, but he doesn't necessarily say that because, listen, MSW is all across the country. They're doing all kinds of great things, in land use and real estate, work. I just want to make it very clear because I have a lot of attorney friends that are out there. Chris and the Murphy boys, I have worked with these guys for a number of years. And in the transition of my new career into an investment banker, there's probably a little bit less that we can do now. But what I would say to anyone that's out there, any bankers that are out there, I mean, between, Kellen Murphy, Chris Murphy, Charlie Wilks, some of the best attorneys that I know, representing banks, anything when it comes to real estate, these are the guys that I come to. So Chris, glad to have you on the show.
What an introduction, man. Listen, I'm not the mayor of Newark, as I said, as I've told you many times. I do have a table at Forno's, and I eat there 4 to 5 days a week. So if you go into Forno's during, lunchtime, you can probably see me at table 1. But it's Newark's been our home since starting the firm 8 years ago. I spent time here before then, and it is our home. It's our home base, and we've been very fortunate to have grown and continue to grow, in the beautiful city of Newark. But
for sure. For sure. Well, I always like going out to lunch with you guys because I always feel like a little bit of a celebrity, being around you guys, because I end up shaking hands with like all these different people. And it's like weird. Like, do I hand out my business card at that point? Because I feel like if I get the intro from Chris or Kellen or Charlie, like I feel like I'm in then.
I don't think you need the business card. I just think, you want to follow up, we'll do a follow up. But
cool.
It's when you go out to lunch with us, it's definitely Newark's still definitely a bit of a throwback. People still doing deals, at lunch, all the business guys, the real estate developers, the politicians. It's a cool town.
And me, I'm a big health and fitness guy. So the other reason I like going out with Chris is, I'll have the broiled salmon, steamed broccoli with some sliced tomatoes. So like he can always keep, I know your lunch order, bro. Like, I mean, it's like, I know it to a T, but I can always keep it really clean when I go out with Chris.
Yeah, no, we're so fortunate around here. We, for our firm, we have Forno's, we have Don Pepe, which is a classic, one of the best. We're there a lot as well. a dega. So we got a nice little mix. You could either do the healthy option, and which I try to do, the salmon with the grilled vegetables, or we could blow it out and do, cowboy ribeyes with with lobster. So whatever you're into, man.
Well, I think maybe the next time I come to town, we'll have to do dinner, because I'm all into the cowboy ribeyes and some cigars afterwards with you guys.
Absolutely.
So, but I always say, like, I mean, it's always cool to hang out with you guys, just and have seen your growth and everything. I mean, listen, real estate, land use, law. I mean, you guys are the top of the top. And unfortunately, in my new career, I do a lot less in the real estate world as I did, as I'm, I say I'm a reformed commercial banker, but thankfully I have a lot of commercial banker friends still. So if you don't know the Murphy, Schiller, and Wilks boys, please make sure that you reach out, and Chris will give you the information after the show as to how to get in touch with them. But Chris and I met, I would say, almost 15 years ago at a restaurant in Trenton. One of my best friends, Matt Mensch, who's the mayor, currently the mayor of Bridgewater, but I think he was working at either the Department of Banking and Insurance, or he was deputy.
Yeah, he was at banking and insurance, I think.
Yeah. So that's when we first met. And I think, like, what really connected me to Chris, and the reason why I'm having him on the show, is I was just always very impressed with you personally, the way that you kind of show up in the world, the way that you present yourself. I mean, you've always just had just I say it like this, right? People have the thing. It's not something you can learn. It's not something you can teach. It's just you either have it or you don't. I like to think I have the thing, but as an outside,
you definitely have the thing, man. You have the thing.
Thank you. You've just always radiated with so much life and so much energy. You've got a really, really cool background that we'll get into during the show. But the one thing that's most impressive to me is you're somebody that I've always, and this is one thing that I just say about life in general. I want to associate with people that want to see me win just as badly as they want to win, right? And you're someone that, whether you know it or not, I'm cheering you on, I'm cheering your brother on, I'm cheering Charlie on, all from the sidelines. And just to see the growth of the firm it feels like it's just yesterday you told me that you decided to start the firm and everything. And then now all of a sudden it's just like, oh my God, they're adding another partner.
Yeah, listen, we've been insanely, first of all, thank you for those words. It's very meaningful and appreciate it very much coming from you. I think of someone who has the thing, right? You do. We've been insanely fortunate. I mean, my brother Kellen and I started the firm 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago. It was just the two of us. The firm was called Murphy Partners. I had come from a background of being in Trenton where we met. I was working for the lieutenant governor for some time, handling the state tax credit programs on the state side, negotiating these tax credit deals with, private developers and companies looking to move into New Jersey. And my brother Kellen was an attorney at Riker Danzig, which is a great historic firm in Morristown, doing real estate and development work there. And we came together and we started the firm, just the two of us, in April of 2017. Since that time, we've grown. We now have 26 attorneys, 35 people total.
Wow.
We do only commercial real estate and development. So that's the one thing about us. We are boutique in that way. We're not everything to everyone, right?
Yes.
We do transactional work, acquisition, sales, leasing, finance, environmental. I run our land use, zoning, and redevelopment practice along with our tax credit and incentive practice. We do construction law, litigation, anything related to commercial real estate and development, we handle. So while we're not diverse in that we service a lot of different industries, we're very diverse within our space. We represent the commercial real estate and construction industries, and we can do anything within those spaces. So we've been really, really fortunate, Michael. And yeah, you knew us when we were just, it was me and my brother, right? And it was, we started this firm. I'm sure we'll get into the history and stuff, and bringing on Matt Schiller and Charlie Wilks really for the second iteration of this thing in 2020. But it's been quite a ride, man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, with the one thing that's really interesting is, and I've seen this with other people, like I'd say in the banking world, like if I had if I didn't have the family and I didn't have the children and all these things that I had to pay for, the mortgage, I always said like, man, I should go back and work at the EDA or something where it's maybe a
Sure.
government job, not
Sure.
making as much money.
Sure.
But I feel like there's so many connections that you made. And for you to really take this leap and for Kellen to take this leap, right?
Sure.
You almost needed that experience, going from like huge, big, well-known New Jersey law firm for your brother Kellen.
Yeah.
And then for you working at the state. I mean, how did those early experiences for you at least at Trenton really shape and then drive you to say, hey, it's time for us to start this on our own?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a couple things. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, knowing the process and the people, and the policy down in Trenton really was, the impetus for us being able to do a lot of the stuff that we were going to do. We kind of, I knew I was, going to law school and I was going to be a lawyer. I was involved, politically in New Jersey, for some time. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And Kellen, was working as a lawyer in commercial real estate and doing development work. And I said, wow, this is, it's a very interesting, area of law and, thinking about exploring that myself. And I got a job down in Trenton at the time. Actually, I started off with Hal Wirtz, who was the commissioner of the Department of Labor. And they created this role where I was going to be the liaison with the NJEDA and with the Lieutenant Governor's office as it related to trying to attract business and track development to the state of New Jersey. And in one of my earliest meetings, I sat down and, we were trying to, I forget the company, but somebody coming out of New York City looking to relocate to New Jersey. And the state had at the time, about a year or so earlier, passed a major reform to our incentive packages, tax credits to attract business and development to the state of New Jersey. And I looked at this and I was like, there's like 2 attorneys that are doing this throughout the state. They're the experts. I said to myself, I'm going to become the expert in this area. I'm going to learn every single thing I possibly can about New Jersey tax credits and incentives. And I spent, 6 years in Trenton doing that. Eventually, I left the Commissioner of Labor. I went over to the Lieutenant Governor's office, which was the direct, initial agency that was trying to work with attracting these businesses. And I did everything that I possibly could to learn everything about these programs. So when we left and we started the firm, my initial, our initial clients, which we didn't have on day one because we couldn't. I left my job on a Friday. We started the firm on Monday. I legally couldn't have clients coming out of the government. And my brother was coming from Riker Danzig, so he's representing some of the largest developers in the country. Mm-hmm. They weren't coming with us to, join up with Murphy Partners. So the first couple of months was just, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day with every person we knew, trying to build those relationships. And eventually what happened is, we got a referral to do a major tax credit project in Jersey City because they said, you should use Chris. He's the guy that just came from Trenton. He knows all the programs. He knows all the people. And then what happens is that, that client in particular said, well, can you also do our lease agreement? And then Kellen's doing the lease. So that's how it really, really developed in that way. And we've been, obviously we're so fortunate, and have since really expanded our services within the commercial real estate space. But yeah, I mean, without that experience in Trenton and without doing that, I wouldn't have had, we would not have be where we are, I don't think.
For sure. And just, small plug for Chris and the firm. I mean, as I'm working with different, clients that I have in the investment banking space, whether they're, trying to do something here in New Jersey or come into New Jersey, Chris is always my first call, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to like, hey, is there any incentives for someone to set up shop here? And sure. It's a really interesting space because I don't think a lot of people think of it sometimes, right? But, it's something that, I always say, like, if anybody's listening here, they're interested in really setting up shop here in New Jersey, Chris should be your go-to call. So for sure on that one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, listen, we always look at it, even if it doesn't make sense to do an incentive as part of a relocation or a development project, we're always looking at it. But then, we can obviously offer all those other services, the transaction, the lease, the purchase agreement, the land use approvals, all the other stuff that comes along with, relocating or developing a project in New Jersey.
For sure. For sure. So was it after that Jersey, getting awarded that Jersey City tax credit project? Was that when you and your brother like looked at yourself and said, yeah, this is going to work?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think we ever doubted it because, my brother and I, just are that way.
Yeah.
I think we always thought, we're going to be able to make this work. Listen, I mean, when you look at when you set up a firm and I'll just to give you some history, so we set up the firm, and we've always run our firm like a major business, right?
Yeah,
It
of
never
course.
was just a small firm that was just our piggy bank, and we would,
Yeah.
oh, money comes in, you take money out. We had standards and processes in place from day one, right? So but when you're looking at it, and the first month you have zero revenue, of course, because we haven't had a client yet, and I think that can be quite scary. I mean, Kellen, we started the firm the same day we started the firm. His daughter was 3 months old. His wife was going back to work that day. Kellen had a mortgage. He had these things, and that takes some guts, man. I mean, to step out
Yeah.
and do that. But he had a very supportive wife, and somebody who believed in him, and we got it done. I mean, we were very fortunate. We were very fortunate. I knew that we could go out there, we could get some clients, but the philosophy has always been and continues to be to this day, getting a client, bringing someone in is one thing. To be the best at what you do is what separates you. And that's what
Absolutely.
drives more and more and more business, right? You have to be the best. And we instill that in every single person at our firm, from the person answering the phone to, the highest level partner. Everything has to be perfect.
It's I can't think of it right now, but you have a phrase though, exceptional results?
Yeah, nothing less than exceptional. That's kind of like our motto.
I love it.
It has to be exceptional. If it's coming out of this door with our letterhead on it or your signature block, it better be perfect. So I'm sure some people at the office don't like that. And I can't because it's a culture, and I do believe that every single person buys into that culture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I think I started off by saying this, and me, I tell it to you like it is, like I've always just thought you've been a very exceptional person, but then having the time to work with Charlie and to work with Kellen on actual transactions, I mean, the best and the brightest. I mean, really, when it comes to it. And the thing about, I always say with lawyers, right, is, I'm not going to make a bad lawyer joke here, just for the record. But
feel free.
no. But for me, is what I always look when it comes to law and as a banker, right, is I just want to be able to have someone looking over my shoulder and letting me know, like almost like just give me the blessing, like you can sleep okay tonight, Michael.
Sure.
Like it's going to be okay. And that's the one thing with Kellen that, when I worked with Kellen directly on a lot of transactions, that was what was really made me feel good, is that I could sleep better at night. And I knew the results were going to be exceptional just because I know the way that you guys are. For sure.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And it's good to hear, that is in fact, the way that people view us. It's great.
For sure. So, I mean, starting off, it's just Murphy Partners. I remember those days. I mean, what do you think the key, like the big key thing that happened in the firm that would, or is there something you could attribute to like the huge amount of growth? Like what caused that?
Well, absolutely. So, in 2020, we started the firm in 2017. We had built it. We had grown it, hired some attorneys. And in 2020, Matt Schiller and Charlie Wilks joined the firm as equity and named partners. Matt Schiller was the vice chair of real estate at Greenbaum Rowe, which is a great New Jersey firm. Charlie Wilks was a real estate finance partner at that firm. And, they came on with us, and the firm went from Murphy Partners to Murphy Schiller and Wilks, MSW. And, since just has taken off, right? Because, again, I think the boutique model, and I think the boutique philosophy is, in my opinion, kind of the future of law. I think you'll have eventually, major national and international law firms, and then, a boutique, whether it's driven by location or driven by a certain practice area. Because I think that people like specialists. They like people that do what they do. Like, our firm is not going to take on just any work. Like,
Yeah.
A litigation comes in, it's not related to commercial real estate development or construction, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
It's going out to somebody else. We know we do, and we do it really well, I think. And it's been great. I mean, but again, bringing on Matt and Charlie was everything. I
Yeah.
mean, those
Yeah.
guys, together with us, took it to the next level. It was a real statement in the industry where I think that, prior to 2020, we were doing our thing and we were doing it really well. And I think we had a lot of respect from people that worked with us and other attorneys in the space. But I think bringing on Matt and Charlie and creating MSW was what kind of solidified us at that time as one of the better commercial real estate firms in the state. And I think we've grown to, continue to grow and have, established ourselves as a leader in the space.
Yeah. I think I finally understand it now myself, is because I always think like, you guys do great work. You have a great personality. I mean, like the one thing I would say is like, I've gone to the Murphy, Schiller Wilks holiday party. And I remember the first time I went to it, it's like this tiny like cigar bar in like Newark. And all of a sudden I'm like looking over my shoulder. I'm like, holy shit, that's a huge real estate player in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Like, the people who write for ROI and J are at the part. I mean, like it was the top of the top when it came to real estate. And with you guys, I think that's really, I guess with law, that's the one thing I would say that really separates you guys is it has to be something new and exciting, right? Because there's so many lawyers out there that are, I'm not going to say jack of all, master of none, right? Because there's people that are specific in the practice. But for you, really niching down to this real estate and land use thing, that was brilliant.
Yeah, no, I think that we don't, it's a really good point. I think that we are more than we are a law firm. That's what we are. We're lawyers. But we're really part of the industry. There are a lot of lawyers that do commercial real estate work.
Yep.
But they're not really part of the industry. They might be more of a part of the State Bar Association, and they're doing stuff within that subgroup of the State Bar Association where they're doing real estate and development work. But we're part of the industry. I mean, our friends and our who are our clients in many cases, are the brokers, the bankers, the developers themselves. So when you come to our holiday party, it's, people at the firm, obviously, but then nobody else is a lawyer. Everybody else is a developer or, an architect, an engineer, somebody else that is servicing the commercial real estate industry. Again, because that's all we do. We're not trying to do anything else.
I think that really, I've had a lot of aha moments when I think about, about you guys and the firm, but that's really it. You guys are really, you're a part of the industry. Like, I mean, that's the best way to sum it up. I mean, you live and breathe it every day. And I mean, that's what I'm sure attracts the clients, but
I give a plug to Real Estate New Jersey, and ROI is another one, but, Real Estate New Jersey, which is a publication, that covers the New Jersey real estate market. And I get calls a lot of the time from people, at other publications and say, hey, do you want to advertise in this name a publication? And, we really don't have to, because as long as I'm advertising and doing stuff in Real Estate New Jersey, every single person in the industry is reading that.
Yeah.
That is my audience. I know who my audience is, and we just need to get to them. So, little plug there for Josh Bird in Real Estate New Jersey. I was
going to say, I was trying to think of the name, but Josh Bird. I remember seeing him at the party. But that's too funny.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good segue. You guys are super involved with the pulse of real estate in New Jersey, and as a New Jersey real estate expert, can you give us any kind of current trends, insights? Something high level that would be helpful to the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been, the real estate industry, the commercial real estate industry, over the past few years has been in somewhat of a little bit of a recession because interest rates went up. Things that might not affect the general economy are impacting commercial real estate and development work. I can talk about the market generally, but I always say to people, I'm not the best at noticing these trends sometimes because we've remained insanely busy. Because, fortunately for us as lawyers, You need a lawyer when you buy a building, you sell a building, you refinance a building, you entitle a building, you hand back the keys, you sue your partner because something went sideways. There's always something in the commercial real estate space that you need a lawyer for. So we've remained incredibly busy, as you've seen. I mean, we've grown 25% year over year over year. I will say that it is a difficult market right now. Interest rates are higher, not historically high, but higher than they were a few years ago. Construction costs are up. There's labor shortages. There's all of these other things. We're seeing a lot of clients that are saying it's difficult to make deals pencil right now. It doesn't mean that they're not getting them entitled or going for the land use approvals or whatever they need to do, but I think you're going to see things open up soon. Hopefully, I think people want a little bit more predictability in the market. But real estate folks, want to do deals. So, as soon as they find an opportunity to make something pencil, we're doing the deal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and then do you think also, I mean, like, listen, I know at least on, in my world, there's also been a lot of cash on the sidelines,
Yeah.
And if you can get in the right project, and then if you have the right state incentives that you can bring in for it, you can make a deal actually, pencil, even though interest rates.
Make a deal pencil that way. And I think there's a lot of, the people that are opportunistic that, they're going to look for an opportunity for somebody who maybe couldn't complete a project or, got to a certain point, but now needs an equity partner or a partner to, move the deal forward. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that.
For sure. So I don't want to put you on the spot too much here, but and I don't want to say your favorite, right? Because, it's like your kids, right? All these different projects you work on, you can't say one. And if somebody say, well, Chris, why didn't you talk about my project? But what's one project that you and your brother and the rest of the firm would say, like, wow, this is something, like, if somebody was to write like a headline about the firm, what's probably the most notable project that you guys worked on?
Yeah, listen, we've been really fortunate. We work on, a lot of pretty significant projects, but one of my favorite and the one I'm probably most proud of is right behind me. You can't see it. I'm sitting in One Gateway in Newark, but is 55 Union, which is a 403 unit development project that we did for J&L Companies. Pepe Lopez, the owner of Don Pepe, is his family, did this project. And it was such an amazing project. First of all, I think it's one of the most beautiful projects in all of New Jersey from a multifamily perspective. They did not skimp one bit. Everything is beautiful. It's fantastic. It's right at Newark Penn Station. And I think it's a good kind of a good highlight for our firm because we did almost every aspect of it. So we helped get the entitlements, the land use approvals for the project. We got the pilot for the project, the payment in lieu of taxes. We did that financial agreement with the city of Newark. We did on the legal side, we did the construction financing. We did the permanent financing. We did all the construction contracts. So it's a good highlight of our firm's ability to fully service a project from idea, conception to completion. And it's just a fantastic project with a fantastic client who, has become very, very close with us over the years.
That's amazing. So, the one thing that I guess I wanted to kind of get into next with you is, the way, I always look at, the way that a firm works. And, the one thing about you that's just, you've always been kind of like this marketing arm. Like you've always been like just out there, and like you said, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like you're always out there. I'm always seeing pictures of you, playing in this golf outing, having dinner with this person, doing all these different things. How did you guys really approach, the kind of the leadership of the firm? I mean, you've always been the guy that's just kind of, you're a brilliant attorney, but you're the guy that's out there marketing. And then you have, Kellen, who, I might not see playing at every golf outing because I know that he's just grinding his pencil down, working on.
Listen, it's a great question. I think it was somewhat of a natural fit when it was just me and Kellen, because if you know my brother and me, we're just totally, different people to a certain extent. I always say I got the hair, Kellen got the brains, but it's, I was more naturally inclined to marketing and to promoting the firm in a way that I thought was going to, help us grow. And Kellen's the managing partner of the firm. So he handles the day to day. Like if you ask me to write you a check, I wouldn't even know where the checks are. I don't even know what that is. If you asked me about our insurance policies, I would have no idea. Matt and Charlie joining the firm was it doubled the natural, separation of those powers, in that Charlie is like Kellen, works with Kellen on the day-to-day management of the firm. And Matt Schiller and I are more big picture, out there doing the events, being at the events. And Kellen and Charlie do that as well. But we are, nothing comes out of our office from a marketing perspective unless I've looked at it. I look at every single thing, every single word, every single color, everything. Kellen and Charlie handle, that day-to-day stuff. I mean, I've never read our partnership agreement. I tell people that. I literally have never read the MSW partnership agreement. I trust that my partners got it right.
Well, I'd hope that your brother got it right. That'd be a little weird.
Better. I think so. I don't know.
So I mean, that's the one thing. I think there's a really great balance, and listen, again, you're a lawyer, you passed the bar, you went through you have the education and the chops, right? You know how to perform all these things, but you're
just to be clear, I bill about 7 hours a day of legal work.
Yeah, of course.
Just so we're clear about that.
Yeah.
My wife wishes I did less, but I bill about 7 hours a day of legal work.
Yeah, no, for sure. But how do you, with your excellence in that marketing space and Kellen's excellence and Charlie's excellence in a lot of that, a lot of the real structure and everything behind it. How do you guys, that's a great combination to have, right? I have that in my own at my own firm now. But how does that transcend to the rest of the people within the firm? How do you manage that approach, and how do you get everyone to kind of buy into this? That this philosophy that you guys have at the firm?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from, the executive committee is the executive committee at our firm. And, and I think that a lot of the tone kind of just goes throughout the firm. I think that there's no power struggle, in that sense. We're a true partnership. We're an equity partnership. And, we've set up a firm that, everybody that's here believes in the mission, or they're not here for long. You either believe, you're either in or you're in the way, as I say. You're with it, and you understand what we're trying to do, and we expect a lot out of ourselves and the people around us. And I think right now we've never been a better firm than we've been today. Every single person at this firm pulls their weight. Every single person works very hard. There's no slackers here. We've been very fortunate.
I guess what I'm trying to get into more is is it like a regular, meeting cadence? Is it a lot of team building? Because I'm just going to say this, right? A couple of weeks ago, I was at the firm to the new office, beautiful building. As soon as we walked through the door or rang the doorbell to be let in, it was an exceptional experience. The young lady that was working at the front desk. Ashley, I walked in and I was like, I felt like, oh my God, they've been preparing for months for me to walk through the door,
it's a culture. And like Ashley always says, and people always say, or people do say, TLC, think like Chris, because I'm so particular about stuff. Like if I were to walk in and maybe this is just a sickness, I feel bad for my wife because I'm the same way. If I walk in and like the chairs in the conference room aren't perfect, that sets the tone for me for everything, for the day, So I want people to come into our office and feel like they have it together. Because if you don't, to me, and maybe I'm just a psycho, if I walk in somewhere and, there's, chairs over in the corner and the chairs in the conference room are turned around, I'm like, if I was hiring an attorney, my thought would be, well, this is like your level of organization. So I don't know, I think that part of the culture probably comes from my, I don't know what the word would be, but I'm sure it's
I think it's a little type A, right?
Yeah,
but
I'd say a little
That's
bit.
a challenge though, right? Because
Yeah.
like I'm the same way, the way that the way that things are, the way that things get presented, the way that you show up in life. But sometimes that's hard though to get, people that aren't named partners in the firm or don't have as much of a financial stake to believe in that kind of thing. So kudos to you guys for getting everyone from the top of the top to all the way to the, I don't want to say lowest level
No, it's not
employee, but
lowest level because, in my opinion, every single person on our team has an equally important role. It's not like,
absolutely.
the role of the person greeting at the front is as important, in my opinion, as anybody else's role.
Absolutely.
They're as important to the firm and to our presentation and to the way we're viewed as I am. So,
Yeah.
I, I do believe that. I do
Yeah.
believe that. So, I think that it's been, somewhat ingrained in people that, everybody, when you're representing MSW, you're representing MSW, you're
Yeah.
our, you're the lead, people that people are saying that relates to every single person. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
paralegal, legal secretaries, everybody's as important as everybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think the thing about you though too, and your brother, and and the rest of the kind of senior leadership team is, you do a great job of making people feel seen and recognized, right? Where I've worked at a lot of different places where it's like, okay, well, the executive team or the managing partner kind of turns his nose up at you as just this lower level person. You really show the appreciation and you make people feel special and make people feel like they're part of something bigger. So that's probably part of the secret to it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, listen, I want people to feel like they're, that they have what they need here. I mean, I do it all the
Yeah.
time. I walk around the office and I poke my head into offices and say, "Hey, you need anything?" Like if they ask for something, I probably can't get it for them. I'll have to ask somebody else. But I want people to know, like, hey, you need something else. I go into a new attorney's office. Hey, you need another screen. Do you like 2 screens? Do you like 3 screens? What is it? So yeah, I'm very I'm just like that. I mean, when we were over at our old office, I mean, people used to laugh. Like, I'd be like vacuuming the floors in the new attorneys' offices before they started, because I want it to be perfect. Like, I want them to come in and be like, okay, we were at a Class B space here at Newark, and it was like, but I just felt that way. I felt that way, and it's but I'm a little psycho too. I'm like,
Yeah.
they'll see me once a week out at the front door, at the glass doors, like Windexing stuff and being like, who's the psychopath that put their hand on the door? Like,
Yeah.
so I'm sure people get sick of it a little bit, but I think it's created a good culture.
Well, I can tell you though, from being in the Class B space to now, Gateway One. I mean, like one
Yeah.
of the landmark properties in Newark, the experience was still the same, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you guys are doing, it's just you're doing it right. So
Yeah.
I don't want to embarrass you, too much, or I don't know if you really talked about this too much, but
Yeah.
you were a professional athlete.
Yeah. You're not embarrassing me. I talk.
I mean, like, I don't know. I just like it's one of those things. Like, if people ask me, they're like, "Oh, so tell me about your life," and it's like, "Well, I dropped out of college to play in a rock band," and they're like, you either
That's a
get
cool
one or two
story.
things, right? So you never know.
That's a cool
But I
story.
mean, professional hockey player and
Yeah.
professional boxer at one point
Yeah.
in time. Can you get into just share with
Yeah,
the
no,
listeners a
listen,
little
we
bit about
grew
that?
up, we grew up, playing. My brother was a very good hockey player too. And my father was a boxer. So we always had that in our life. And, yeah, I mean, I tend to be like the 0 or 150 type person,
Yep.
no matter what I'm doing. So, if it's sports, if it's even in school, like when I ultimately decided to turn my attention to school, it was like I wanted to be the best, in the firm as well. Yeah, I mean, I had a kind of a crazy life. I went up to Canada when I was 17 to play junior A hockey and finish my high school up in Canada. Ultimately ended up going to Merrimack College for a year and playing hockey in Hockey East. And then I signed a professional contract and played in the minor leagues for 2 years. I woke up on a bus in New Mexico after like a 20-hour road trip and was like, man, I need to get a college education, because if I don't, I'm going to, I don't want to be sitting on this bus forever. Came back to New Jersey, and my father was like, to stay in shape, come back to the boxing gym and keep working out. And I did that. Then, after 40 something amateur fights, I turned professional as a boxer. I had 4 professional fights. I was undefeated. I hurt my eye. I had 3 surgeries on my cornea in my left eye. And, I don't think there's any noticeable damage, but at the time it was like, I needed to make a decision as to whether I wanted to keep boxing or not. And ultimately decided not to, and just to focus on, my career and education. And, which was the best thing I ever did, because I can still put a couple words together, not getting hit in the head too much. But it's, yeah, it was a cool thing, as I went out into the world after my education, and I had gone to school and done well academically. Nobody wanted to talk about that. They just wanted to talk about the hockey and the boxing. So, it's always been something that's been a big part of my story.
And now another cool thing, I mean, I guess we'd say relatively recently, though, is now you've been able to still, participate in a sport that you love, but, talk about you're managing
Yeah. So another crazy, turn in my life. But my 15-year-old was going to the boxing gym, and I ran into a guy who used to write for Ring Magazine named Ryan Sangalia, and Ryan ran up to me and said, "Oh my God, Chris Murphy, I haven't seen you in forever. Are you still involved in boxing?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I've always wanted to manage somebody, but I've never really found the right guy." And he said, "I have the perfect kid for you." This guy, Jean-Pierre Valencia, JP Valencia, he had come to the United States 3 years earlier. He was born in Ecuador, raised in Spain, and had built up a pretty good amateur career. He's ranked number 2 in the country as a middleweight. And I followed JP for like a year, and then Ryan and I, as co-managers, signed him to be a professional boxer. He's currently 4-0. He's fought in Atlantic City at the Prudential Center twice, and then also at Carteret Performing Arts Center. So we're looking for his next fight for that. I don't do the day-to-day. I'm like big picture, do the contracts, negotiate with the promoters. I have another kid that we're about to turn professional at the end of the year, who just won the New York City Golden Gloves and lost out in nationals to Floyd Mayweather's nephew in a really good fight. So I'm excited about him as well. So we'll see what happens. But I don't have many hobbies outside of I do business, and then really my family, on the weekends. And so it's not like I'm, going out, playing poker on Saturday nights. Like, this is like just a little extra side gig that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I compare it to, for myself, it's been, I work and I work out and I have my family. That's what I do.
Yeah.
You've always been someone that's been into health and fitness. I mean, obviously because of your past life as a,
Sure.
both these different professional aspects. But, what are the things that you're doing on a daily basis? I mean, I remember in my head, I still remember this, you telling me, I do like probably 30 minutes of jump rope, and I do my push-ups and I do my core work. I mean, what are the stuff that you're doing on a daily basis to keep you,
So I've done less and less since we had that conversation, to be honest. So, one thing for me is just, the intake of calories. So it's, if I can at lunch do my, grilled salmon with, vegetables, and then, eat a healthy dinner, because we're pretty healthy, family. My wife, cooks great food, and it's healthy, to do that. My problem is that sometimes, like I said, I'm 0 or 150. So I'm either eating a piece of salmon with vegetables, or I'm eating, lobsters and steaks. So there's really no in between. We just built out our home gym. My wife is like a rock star. She put together this insane home gym. It's like so cool. And, so I'm starting to do that. But yeah, I mean, for me, I get to the office so early, and I generally am home pretty late. So like, there's not a ton of time for me to be, doing the workout. I need to take more of your example probably and be a little bit more fit. But, as my wife said, because I was an athlete, my body and my muscle memory is, for so many years was, it's so intense. It's not that difficult for me to kind of pop back into shape a little bit, but I think I need a little bit more. I need a little bit of your schedule these days.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I see it as an opportunity. It sounds like, with as busy as you are, maybe it's a cool way for you and your wife to connect, early in the morning, get in the workout.
Yeah, my problem is I'm honestly in the office so early that I don't know how much earlier I can get up to do that. But we'll see. We'll see how this home gym works out. Maybe I'll be a different man when I sit here in like a year.
Yeah. No, that'd be awesome. So, before we wrap up, just wanted to ask you, a couple more things. I mean, is there any advice that you could give to anyone? I mean, you and your brother both had very, very successful careers, separately.
Yeah.
And then you decided to make that leap into, starting your own firm. What advice could you give to anyone that's, starting to feel that itch, or maybe they're just kind of getting bogged down at that big firm, or, they're sitting on the bus in New Mexico and they're like, I gotta change something. What's
Yeah.
a piece of advice you'd give to people?
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's not much reward without some risk. I mean, everybody has a different risk tolerance, right? And everybody has something different that makes them super happy, right? So it's like, I'm not sure that my life is what everybody wants. The idea of owning your own law firm, and it sounds so great, and, being an entrepreneur, but I mean, there's a lot of sacrifices that come along with that. I would just say to, just follow, whatever you're feeling and you want to do. I mean, again, everybody has a different risk tolerance, but I think that, get out there and just meet every single person you can and talk to as many people as you can. When I was trying to make a decision, as to what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be before I decided to go down to to Trenton, and then ultimately got into real estate and development law. At a certain point, even in getting my law degree, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I made a list of like 15 people or 20 people, the successful people, not like. And that might mean different things. It didn't mean always financially successful. It could just be emotionally and mentally,
Yeah, absolutely.
and happy. And I made that list, and I went and had lunch or coffee or whatever with every single one of those people, and just talked to them about, how'd you get into what you're doing? Do you like it? Do you not like this? And actually a guy named Andy Movahill, who owns Crystal Springs Resorts up in North Jersey, was a friend of mine from my hockey days. I sat down with Andy, and then we had a conversation. Andy's really the person who got me plugged in and got me rolling with some of the political stuff that I was doing, which ultimately led to me going down to Trenton and working for Hal Wirtz, who was a former freeholder from Sussex County. So, there's a couple people in my life that I owe a lot to, from the success of, professionally. And one of those people is Andy Movahill. But it's, I made that list and I went out and I talked to everybody, and there were certain people I was like, okay, I definitely don't want to do what this person's doing, or I want to do it, or take a piece from each, So I would just say, go meet everyone you can. There's a book by Keith Fazzari, called Never Eat Alone.
Yep.
And I used to have like a stack of them in my office and just give them to people. It's a fantastic book about network and connection. And I think that's what's going to make people, separate people in the future, I think.
I think that's a really great takeaway for the listeners, because it's something that I did, before I made, like I always say, like I made this leap from super cushy commercial lending job to essentially eat what you kill. And I went out with, probably 15 people. I call them my older brothers, like they're 10 years my senior. And I'm like, am I freaking crazy? Like, should I be doing this? Like, what made you take the leap? So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
So how can listeners connect with you and the firm? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, they could connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. If you just look me up, I'm there. Our website, www.murphyllp.com. If they want to check out the website, there's also links to, our contact information, or just reach out to me, find us on the website and shoot me an email. I'm very accessible. I talk to people all the time. Sometimes these younger people reach out and say, hey, I'm thinking about this or thinking about that. Can you meet with me? I always respond to everybody. I just do, even the, people that are sending me, just stuff that I'm not interested in. I just always acknowledge them. I don't know. I just have this way about me, that I feel like, if I was in their position, I'd probably want somebody to respond to me too. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for that. And then I like to wrap up the show with my $1 million question. So I'm gonna read it to you now, and then I'd love to hear your candid response to it. Sure. But when you look back on your journey, personally and professionally, what's one moment that felt really small at the time, but ended up changing everything for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think I touched on one of the things professionally for me, and sitting in one of those first meetings, where I was learning that there were these incentive programs, and I could have just said, oh, that's great, good, there's incentive programs. I can just collect my paycheck from, at the time, the Department of Labor, and just keep doing what I'm doing, and but I didn't. I really dove in and said, I'm going to become the expert. I'm going to become the expert in this. And that changed my life. And the second thing is, meeting my wife. My wife is like the most incredible support system for me. She endures in some cases, the life of being with somebody who's, hyper driven and working constantly. And, if I didn't have that support, honestly, I wouldn't be where I am. So I'm incredibly grateful for that.
Great way to wrap it up, man. We always got to give our wives the props, because my wife, just like yours, has to deal with a hyper-driven, type A, crazy person that we both are. But I think that's why we're friends, man.
I think so too.
Chris, I really enjoyed the conversation. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. So thank you very much for joining me today. And guys, check out Murphy, Schiller, and Wilks. Great real estate and land use firm in Newark, New Jersey. Chris, I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Great stuff, man. Great seeing you.